Uh, Another great topic. Everyone needs to grab a pen and paper to listen to this one.
I'm rocking and rolling. I hope you are too. I'm glad I live in the Midwest and I'm not subject to the weather going on, the tsunami and all of that stuff. So yeah, it's been a busy few weeks since the big beautiful bill passed, and today we're going to talk about where the rubber meets the road, how you implement all of these strategies for yourself, how to get the most out of your CPA after the big beautiful bill. And my guest, Alexi Kaplan, is a longtime CPA, friend and colleague. We've had a lot of fun working with a bunch of clients together. And Alexi, you are a little different than most CPAs in a pretty big important way. So if you want to start by telling me a little bit about your background and what makes you unconventional, then we'll talk a little bit about where your value comes into your clients.
Well, first of all, Neil, Ed, thank you for having me here. Super excited to join this wonderful podcast and share my wealth of knowledge as a businessman, entrepreneur, and obviously as a tax practitioner as well. Well, where would I start, Ed? What would you
Well,
like me? How far back do you want me to go?
well, start with the fact that you had built and sold businesses before you ever became a CPA, before you could even spell CPA. If we spotted you, the C and the P.
Okay, that's a good start. So I kind of okay. So when I was in my 20s, I got married very young. Let's call it what it is. I was 21 when I got married to a wonderful woman that I'm still married to today. And we'll be celebrating our 22-year wedding anniversary this coming up Sunday. And she was the woman that inspired me to be a better man in every single respect. Now, traditionally, most of us know that getting a steady paycheck is what man, quote unquote, should do to support the family. At least this is how I was brought up. And obviously, as traditional way of approaching things, the first thing I did when we got married, I got a job that paid well, a job that provided us and offered an opportunity to live the American dream, getting a house, getting a car. But then shortly after, we got pregnant, and
I'm
unfortunately,
sure she
my
will appreciate the we there.
well, it takes two to tango, and right, and we got pregnant, and my boss at that time, I was working for a law firm, could not understand the concept of me being able to be close to my wife in the last 2 weeks of the final trimester, and he essentially forced me out of the workplace because I had to quit. And when my firstborn was born, and I always tell her this story that she was born into poverty because I was not even collecting unemployment. My wife did not work. We had a mortgage, cars, etc. But that gave me the push to do something better for myself. And that
Mhm.
was not to get another job, but think outside the box because I've had many different jobs in many different areas. So I figured now's the time to do something I've never done before. And that is to go into business for myself. So that's exactly what I did. And I became very successful in doing so. I have opened up one business, then I bought another business, then I made it into a beautiful, beautiful venture. I sold it. I got into a completely different space, etc. But at the end of the day, every single kid that I had gave me an inspiration to do better and to always
Mhm.
think outside the box.
So up until now, accounting, tax, it's not part of your life, other
Nope.
than at the end of the year you send the IRS and the state of New York a big check.
Yes. So I had a CPA for 13 years while I have all of the different business ventures, and they were spread out across different industries. They were real estate related, they were in child daycare. Well, let's just call it what it is. I've closed over 10,000 real estate transactions in different capacity,
Hmm.
sitting at different sides of the table. I would work for many different law firms representing buyers, sellers, lenders, title insurance agencies. I had my own title insurance agency, a settlement company representing lenders. I had a real estate development, a real estate holding company. I had an imports exports business, daycare center, and a staffing company.
So
Wow.
Um,
why does a guy like that end up becoming a CPA? This is the curious transition because it's so unlike most of the other CPAs I work with. I work with a lot of CPAs who own their own business. And those of you watching the podcast, you probably work with a small firm tax professional, either a solo practitioner or somebody who owns their own business. But there's a very big difference between a CPA who owns his own business and an entrepreneur trapped in a CPA's body. Clearly, you are an entrepreneur trapped in a CPA's body. So, how did you let yourself into the bear trap?
Well, it was not really by much choice, but 2008 came, and a
Hmm.
lot of my assets and businesses were tied in with real estate market. And as you recall, the market tanked,
Not a good year
completely
for real
tanked.
estate.
No. So I tried to salvage whatever I could up until 2010. I sold off all my business ventures, etc., and I had some money that obviously that I realized. And then I came home and I sat across the table for my wife and I said, "Honey, we're okay for the next few years. I don't have to work. You're working, kids are fine, everything's going to be okay. But what the hell am I supposed to do for the rest of my life?"
Right. What do you want to be? What do you want to be when you grow up?
Exactly. So she technically said, "Well, why don't you be a lawyer? Why don't you be an accountant?" And well, speaking of accountant, our accountant seems to be doing just fine and doesn't look like, he's doing much work and we pay him all this money every single year, you with all your businesses, etc. And it's recession proof. It's always going to
Right.
be, needed and people need a qualified practitioner, etc. She says, "Why don't you look into that?" And I said, "Well, law school is probably a three-year window that I have to go to. Let's see what I need to do to qualify to sit for the CPA exam." So I went back to my school and I already had a bachelor's from many years ago to find out exactly what would I need to do to qualify to sit for the exam. And they reviewed all my records and they said, "Mr. Kaplan, the only thing you need is technically take 10 accounting classes and you will get your second bachelor's degree and you will be eligible to sit for the exam." So in my head, I'm like, 10 classes, I could do it in 1 year at most,
Hmm.
get my second degree, and then it probably going to take me another year or so to pass all four sections of the CPA exam. So technically, 2 years are better than 3 years with all the
Right.
unknown compared to law school and a lot less money, right?
Sure.
So that's exactly what I did. And well, before actually, let's back up. Before I decided and committed on going back to school, I decided to schedule an appointment with my current accountant at that moment
Okay.
to see what he thinks about the idea of me becoming a fellow CPA. So when I scheduled the appointment with him, we sat across the table in his office. I told him what I want to do. He looks at me and he says, "Alexia, are you effing out of your mind?" And obviously, I
Right.
did not expect that reaction, but I go to him, "Why? What made you say what you just said?" And he says, "Look, the fact that you are not a CPA is beyond any reasonable argument. The fact that you always do things completely differently is totally out of the realm of what the accounting profession requires. And you're a businessman. You cannot stand still. You had all these different businesses. You were successful, most of them. And why would you want to do what I do? Sit on my behind 7 days a week, 14-hour days during tax season, and dealing with ungrateful clients." And he says, on top of everything, CPA exam is so difficult. I don't think you have you're not going to be able to pass it. I just don't believe that you will. It is so
Wow.
difficult.
That's a lot of
Wow.
honesty.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
is more honesty than I would expect.
So,
So, by the way, just to interject, I will tell you that I have passed the Ohio bar exam. I know a bunch of people across the country who are JD CPAs. They've passed the bar exam and the CPA exam. Invariably, 100% of them tell me passing the CPA exam is harder than passing the bar exam.
well, I never took the bar exam, so I have nothing to compare it to, the exception of the four sections of the CPA exam that I did pass. Some of them I had to retake multiple times, but it still stuck through it and I passed.
Well,
But
great thing is it's all pass fail. There are no style points. in getting licensed
Exactly.
as a CPA. So what he's established, and the reason that I want to bring out this story in this kind of detail is he has painted a picture of you as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Why would you want the headaches of being a CPA? And particularly, you don't do things by the usual rules. And the CPA profession is all about following those rules. So that's the theme that I really want to build on it as we continue this conversation.
100%. Well, when somebody tells me I can't do it, for whatever reason, it just gives me more motivation to prove not only them wrong, but prove myself right. So I told him very simply that just watch me. I'll
Mm-hmm.
see you in a couple of years. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, I got the 4.0 GPA in my accounting degree the second time around. I passed the old four sections of a CPA exam. I worked for a mid-sized accounting firm in the process. That was no fun at all.
No.
Well, the main reason why, even though the accounting firm that I worked for was phenomenal, it was a great firm. I mean, average lifespan of the employee in that firm was 34 years. People just did not leave. They gave a
Okay.
great life work balance, and it was a great firm to work for. But for me, coming out from a completely different background as an entrepreneur and going into something the unknown and starting at the bottom of the at the bottom all the way at the bottom was very difficult, and especially when I knew things could be done so much more efficiently, things could be done so much better. And when I did do them on my own merit, I got called out, not scolded but reprimanded in a way, because this is not how we do things speech,
Mm-hmm.
for simple reasoning is because they have a budget for the hours that each person has to work on each particular client. And unfortunately, or fortunately, well, fortunately for those clients, unfortunately for the firm, I was a lot more efficient in completing the assigned tests much
Right.
faster.
So let's put a pin in that because that's really important. What the CPA firm was selling was billable hours. There's
Correct.
this old quote from Abraham Lincoln about lawyers, but it applies to CPAs and a lot of other professionals as well. A lawyer's time and advice are his stock in trade. And a lot of people misinterpret that. They see time and they think, oh, billable hours, you decide what an hour of your time is worth, and you're going to try and sell as many of those hours as possible. But the advice is not measured by the time that goes into delivering that advice. The advice is measured by the value. So if you and I are doing a tax plan for a client and we can spend 10 hours and save one client $100,000,
Right.
that's great. If we can save another client, a different client, $1 million with the same 10 hours, should we be charging the same fee to both clients? Well, if you're in that blinkered CPA mindset that you were working in, where they said, no, we're selling billable hours, that I think that's just that's a miserable way to make a living, and you're selling effort. You're getting paid for effort, but you're not getting paid for results. So Neil, you've used professionals, you've had multiple careers yourself, from wrestling to marketing to podcasting. If I come to you as a business owner and I give you two propositions: one, I'm going to sell you my effort, and two, I'm going to sell you results, what are you interested in?
I'm interested in results.
Exactly. You're interested in results. And if I can show you what the results are worth, it doesn't matter what my time is worth. But Alexi, you've already discovered from the inside the flawed thinking of a lot of CPA firms. So continue, and we'll stop and we'll diagnose the problems along the way.
Thank you, Ed. And you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. After 2 weeks working for that firm, I realized that their model just simply does not work, even though it worked for them for many, 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 many years.
Mm-hmm.
And they just don't know anything else. They don't know anything that's different. So they had separate departments for everything. They were micromanaging every single thing. They were billing for every single second of their time spent on any client. But
Sure. Nickel
at
and
the end,
diming.
nickel and diming on steroids. That's
Yeah.
exactly what they did. I mean, the first time I got called into the partner's office, they gave me a tax return to do. It was during tax season. That supposedly they budgeted over 30 hours of my time to complete. I
Hmm.
completed it in an hour and a half, and
Wow.
it was
Okay.
done accurately,
Uh-huh.
100%. There was no mistakes, but I got called into the office because apparently I worked too fast. That was the exact phrase that the partner used.
Uh-huh.
Um, my solution to that was very simple. It's because every single time you have to log in, there was a time tracker, right? How
Right.
much time you spend, and based on that time tracker, they prepare invoices, and that's
Yeah.
how they build a client.
Sure. Big
So,
Brother really is watching.
correct. So obviously, I was told that once you work on a client, you click it on. Once you're done, you click it off. So I did what I was supposed to do, right? I'm a good listener, and
Well,
apparently,
apparently not.
apparently not. Well, they didn't tell me how much time they budgeted for it because any other predecessor before me spent 30 hours doing the same thing.
Hmm.
I don't know why. I don't know how. I'm not a genius, trust me. But it's just they deliberately over budgeted the time so they could build more of the client, etc.
Right. Right.
So my solution to when I was told that I worked too fast, I immediately responded to the partner. Well, I got a solution for you. If you believe I work too fast, I could keep the timer going and just leave for a day and then come back tomorrow and maybe shut it off. So that way it accumulates more time and you could build the client in accordance to what your budget is. He looks at me, he's like, yeah, but that's fraud. I'm like, exactly.
Right.
You're defrauding your clients.
You
Instead,
dropped the F-bomb yourself. That wasn't me.
exactly. I said, if that does not work for you, I mean, I don't know what else to do. I mean, I could go for a walk. I could take a very long lunch.
Hmm.
I could do whatever you want me to do. But the problem is not me. The problem is the fact that anybody that worked before me really wasted the time.
Yeah.
So if that's what's encouraged in your practice under your leadership, I'm sorry. But as a fellow entrepreneur and a businessman, I would fire those people.
Yeah.
Literally. So instead of you dwelling over time for money, I said, why don't you get more valuable clients that pay you more money or at a higher rate for doing the same work? So that
Hmm.
way you have a nicer pool of clients that generate a lot more money for the firm where you don't sit and literally watch the clock just because you have a certain budget.
Right.
He looked at me, he's like, Alexi, I know you just started out, but wow, I worked here for like 40 years. I've never heard of this concept. And so to me, right away, I thought, I'm like, oh my God, where am I? I feel like I'm in a twilight. I need to get out.
Yeah.
So I had there's an experience requirement before the CPA license is issued. So
Sure.
I had quite a bit of time. So I was missing maybe another like 4 months. I literally to the day clocked those 4 months, miserable, kept my head down, did
Hmm.
what I had to do. It was like a jail sentence, to be honest. I mean, I've never been in jail. Hopefully, I'll never be in jail. But to me,
It's
it
not fun.
felt well. I would not know, and I don't want to know, Ed. But in all seriousness, I couldn't wait to get out. And once
Sure.
I got out, the first thing I did is I opened up my firm
Hmm.
and I said to myself that I will not be like my old CPA. I will not be like the firm I work for. I will be the one providing value to all the clients that I work with. And I want to
Right.
do things different compared to what other CPAs are doing. And not only that, I'm very relatable and I could easily relate to all the hardworking entrepreneurs out there
Right.
that are starting their businesses, that are running their businesses, that are trying to survive, scale, merge, etc. Because I've been down in trenches so many times, and I
Sure.
know the process.
Yeah. So let's take a quick time out here, and talk about that. You made the decision not to sell traditional accounting services. You made the
Correct.
decision to sell value. And there are so many people in the world who are starting to transition out of that old model. Attorneys are even worse than accountants about billing for value, but even the biggest, stuffiest New York law firms are starting to value bill for certain projects. And they're selling results. It's more fun for them. Now, I clerked at a big law firm my second year summer after law school, and we tracked our time in 10-minute increments, and I'm sorry, 6-minute increments, tenth of an hour increments, and
Well,
that's just it's the height of nickel and diming clients, literally, but it's not the best way to deliver results for the client. And what I do as a tax planner now is I sit down with a prospective client, I look at their situation, I get an idea of how much I can save them, and then I'll project a fee. I'll project an investment in my service, and it's going to be a bigger number than they expect, but I'm going to explain to them why it's worth it. And yeah, I am more expensive than your old CPA, but I'm worth more because you're going to pay less actual tax. So you pay more in a planning fee than you were before, but you pay a lot less in tax. And that's a model that entrepreneurs feel comfortable with. I don't think anyone feels comfortable hiring a CPA or an attorney or anyone else and saying, okay, just, you know, hit the clock and let me know when the clock is done and send me a bill for that. I mean, again, Neil, you're a business owner as well.
Yeah.
You want to know going in what your exposure is, what the bill is
You
going
want
to
to
be.
know what it is. And that's the thing when it's billable hours versus results and what you're paying. If you're just surprised when you see the bill at the end of the month, say, what did you do? People were like, and what result did you bring me? I mean, I've done this because of attorneys.
Oh
I'm
no,
like,
of course you have, and it's a terrible, terrible incentive. So there's a wonderful story about an attorney named David Boyes who's been in the news. He's represented a lot of high profile clients. He started out as an associate at a big white shoe law firm in New York, Cravath, Swaine and Moore, the at one point the top New York firm, and they sell billable hours. Well, at Cravath, you would work 7 or 8 years, and then if you didn't make partner, you were out. So Boyes had a case. He was working on the IBM antitrust litigation, and he and another, I believe, seventh year associate were both working the case. They were both competing for a partnership. So they both wanted to see who could sell the most hours. That's how you prove your value to the law firm, not whether your clients get the better results, but whether you can bill the hours. So the other guy was a hero, and one day he billed 24 hours. So the story goes that Boyce started in New York. There was a litigation going on in California as well. So he started in New York, flew to California, worked on the plane, worked all day in California, flew back, and billed 27 hours in a day. Now, is that story true? I hope it is, because I love to believe that the perversity of it. But how does that serve a client? How does that serve a client? So when we start this particular podcast by saying, how do you get the most from your accountant? The question is, how do you work with your accountant so that you're getting the results you want at a cost that's fair to you and profitable to the CPA? Because if it's not profitable to the CPA, they're not going to be around in business for you. But let's talk about some specific lessons there on how you get the most out of your CPA. So, Alexi, you run a full service accounting firm,
Well,
right?
yes.
Right. Your firm does everything. So your firm does. Do you guys do payroll?
No, we don't do
Thank God.
everything.
Thank
No,
payroll's awful. You do accounting.
we
You do
do
so
some accounting.
you do some accounting. You do some tax preparation. You do some tax representation,
Hmm.
meaning if somebody owes money to the IRS, you negotiate their settlement, and
Yep,
then you do some planning.
correct.
What is the most valuable thing that you offer your clients out of everything your firm does?
Planning. Tax planning is the most valuable service offering because it incorporates everything you just mentioned. Number one, in one monthly payment that's agreed upon between my client and my firm. Um, the client. So what you just talked about makes so much sense to me because I've been on both sides. To the audience, our well, our fellow accountants are stuck in the old ways for the most part,
For the
and
most part.
they trade time for money, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Time for money, time for money. It's the typical traditional way. Value proposition is something that a lot of them struggle with because they can't comprehend how you could charge so much money for the service that they used to give away for free. So
Right. So, and in their mind, either they're wrong or you're wrong, and they don't want to believe that they're wrong. So naturally, it's how can you charge so much money? Not why am I such an idiot giving away something that you can charge thousands of dollars for?
correct. And a lot of them, as a result, need to be retrained and reprogrammed inside their own heads, to see the value of a mutually beneficial relationship.
Hmm.
So in my firm, the way that most of my engagements are structured with the clients is, first of all, I don't work with everybody. I'm very selective with the type of clients that I work with because I really want to help them on many different levels, not just
Hmm.
getting their taxes done or getting their books done. I don't do books alone. I don't do taxes alone. So most of my clients are monthly clients that pay me monthly payments every single month, recurrent payments based on our agreement, and all of the services that you mentioned are part of it.
Hmm.
So I don't nickel and dime them. It doesn't matter how much time it takes me to do their books or get their tax return done or not deal with the IRS because, knock on wood, none of my clients got audited ever. I do representation and I represent other clients that got in trouble and then eventually they become my clients, not my own
Okay.
because there was no need for it. But above all, they all want results, like you said, and they also
Right.
want peace of mind. They want to be able to sleep at night knowing that their accountant or the team and their team has their backs.
Right.
The books are going to get done, the taxes are going to get done, the payroll is going to be outsourced to ADP or whatever for them to do it, and they deal with them directly. The tax planning component is the proactive way of doing
Hmm.
things. This is when things change, and you could actually affect the bottom line towards the end of the year. And I work with them on a consistent basis every single month, every quarter, whatever they need. We meet and we discuss their current situation. I know how they're doing because the books are pretty much done by us,
Hmm.
and we could plan accordingly. And now you did mention the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I mean, now just like back in 2017, this is probably the biggest overhaul. Well, it's a continuation. It's built on
Yeah.
the Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017.
Right. Which
So
which was the biggest overhaul going all the way back
since
to
1986,
1986.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it's a big deal.
it's a big deal. So now, I mean, a lot of them, uh, and I'm sure that a lot of our colleagues they get phone calls saying, "What? How does that affect me? How does this bill affect me? What do I do? What do I do?" Guess what? From July 4th, right, when it was actually passed,
When it was
signed into
signed.
law,
Hmm.
until now, which is July, whatever it is today, I haven't gotten one phone call or email about it. You want to know why?
Yeah, I do.
Because they get the information on weekly basis.
Okay.
I let them know about the changes. I educate
Hmm.
them. I keep them informed throughout the year. I don't want them calling my office, dealing with my staff, or scheduling appointments for me to waste everybody's time.
Hmm.
Right.
That's why it's a proactive approach on my part to anticipate them calling me, to anticipate them reaching out,
Hmm.
and by continuously educating them and providing them updates on all these different areas that may affect them or have any impact on their specific situation, it kind of leaves the door closed or
Hmm.
for invitation to question or to waste my time. But once again, is it one trick pony type of situation where it works for everybody? No.
No.
I know for my biggest clients and the ones that need the most help and that are affected by the one big beautiful bill changes, I will have to have meetings, and
Hmm.
my staff is arranging them for the time that's convenient to me and the client.
Hmm.
Nobody's calling me just because. It's
Okay.
scheduled. We have a meeting. We discuss it and prepare for the meeting. We go over it 15, 20 minutes. We're done. They're happy because I'm the one telling them about the changes, how it's going to impact their situation. They don't have to ask me for it. They see a lot of value in it. Once again, value proposition.
Yeah, value proposition, and the value comes from the planning. The bookkeeping is a commodity. It's
Yes.
something that needs to be done. It's downstream from the planning, but the planning is the value. So, how do you think you approach tax planning differently from most CPAs? You've been an entrepreneur yourself. You've been on the other end of the April 15th surprise. Accountants are familiar with doing tax returns and Neil handing you your 1040 and you look down and you say, I owe what? And you use a lot of words that we're not going to use on a family podcast here, right? But so Alexi, you've been on both sides of that. How how does your background as an entrepreneur feed your daily work with your clients?
So if you recall, about 5 minutes ago, I mentioned that once I decided to be a CPA, that I decided not to be like my accountant and not to be like the firm that I used to work for. And the reason why is because they were always reactive in their approach. And
Sure.
that is, usually I got to meet with my accountant once, maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year if really needed. But there was nothing proactive about it. All
Hmm.
he did, he took my year-end profit and loss financial statements that I actually worked on.
Right.
I gave it to him. He put it on a piece of paper, checked off a couple of boxes, and told me how much to write the check for. Like you said, there was nothing proactive about it. And I
Hmm.
thought that was the only way to do it. But when I obviously learned about the actual field and professional became a CPA, I figured that there has to be a better way. There has to be. You could always do things in advance. You could project things. You could be proactive.
Hmm.
This is when I stumbled upon your tax network, tax master network. I signed up. I became a member. I started learning from you. Attended most of the weekly calls, etc. And I learned more and more and more about tax planning.
Hmm.
So my approach is simple: communication and being proactive. So I communicate with my clients on a regular basis. I don't leave everything till the last minute. And I encourage them to communicate with me and my office throughout the year and not just wait till the last moment, because
Hmm.
there's not much you can do, towards the end of the year, especially when the year is over. The year is over. It's history. You cannot
Right.
change history.
Right.
So I
Unless
always,
you've got Marty McFly's DeLorean from Back to the
well,
Future,
not yet,
there's not
not
much
yet.
you can do.
And not yet. Maybe a couple of years down the line. Um, but
McFly.
make fly exactly. But the whole idea of being proactive and educating your clients to reach out to you, to know that don't wait till the last second, makes my job a lot easier and makes
Hmm.
their results and their situations much better.
I got a couple of questions about tax planning specifically as part of your CPA education. So you had a bachelor's degree, you went to the accounting school, they said you need 10 classes to take the CPA exam. How many of those classes were on tax planning and saving money?
Zero.
Whoa, whoa. No, I call
Yeah.
shenanigans. No tax planning classes in
Nope.
accounting school. What about the CPA exam? You've mentioned there are four parts to the exam. How much of the exam is dedicated to tax planning? You would think that'd be a pretty big percentage, wouldn't you?
None. Zero.
Wow. Yeah, so and that's another factor that goes back into the how to get the most of your account.
Right.
Most people hear CPA, they hear accountant, they think, oh, tax expert, studied taxes in school, parsed dusty old law books, figured out how to structure corporate entities, all that kind of stuff. So if my tax pro is a CPA or an enrolled agent, naturally that's going to be part of their background. Either confirm that or demolish it.
I will demolish it because that's not the case. And people are mistaken when they make this assumption. As CPAs, they're trained to report historical data that is provided to them or created by them based on the information provided by their clients into reports and then record that information on tax returns. So it's all about financial reporting and compliance. That's all. There was nothing mentioned on how to actually save their money, their clients' money on taxes, because it's not beneficial.
Right? It's
It's
not
not.
part of what most CPAs do.
No, no, not at all. Not at all. And that's the scariest part. You would think that would be a part of. And Ed, thank you for pointing this out, because it is true that throughout high school, throughout college, throughout second time in college, so 2 degrees, right? So I got 2 bachelor's degrees,
College
and
was so
none of
nice you did it twice.
I did it exactly so nice. I did it twice. The CPA exam, nothing. There was nothing about tax planning. There were some sections talking about tax deferrals,
Hmm.
regarding the plans, the retirement plans, etc., but nothing about tax savings.
Okay. So that's an important lesson for listeners who
Yep.
are evaluating their CPA relationship or their EA relationship, or who are looking for somebody to do this work for them. One, you can't assume that just because somebody has the right initials after their name that they actually know anything about tax planning, about saving you money. Two, most accountants, they go to high school, they go immediately to college, they study accounting because there's no blood and there's no, they don't have to do organic chemistry, and because there's no selling. CPAs hate selling. The average CPA couldn't sell cocaine to Charlie Sheen. So it's a nice, respectable tradition. If your girlfriend brings you home to meet dad, oh, he's a CPA. Dad's gonna trust you. But they have no idea what it's like to run a business for the most part, to make a payroll, to make decisions about whether to invest in marketing or HR, or, they're assuming the CPA is going to be a business advisor, and most CPAs aren't. So what I found clients typically want from their CPA, they want two things. One, numbers that help them run the business. Okay, I got this monthly income statement. What does that actually mean? Where am I overspending? Where should I be spending? Are other companies in my industry spending this much on marketing or twice as much? Now, they want to be able to go to their accountant for that sort of advice. The second thing they want is lower personal income taxes. And the irony is they get neither. They get reports, but they don't really understand the reports.
Mhm.
Most business owners don't understand a balance sheet. God forbid you throw a statement of cash flows at them. I didn't even know that a statement of cash flows existed until I took an accounting class in law school. They're not really getting helpful information. They're getting the right required reports, required by who, but they're getting what the outside world tells them they need. A tax return, you don't do a tax return because you want to do a tax return. Neil, when was the last time you got excited about doing a tax return?
Never.
Never, never,
I
never.
mean, I think it's horrible. I think anything involving money, regardless of what you do, we have this feeling, I guess, ooh. I mean, like it's awesome to talk sales, right? It's awesome to look
Yeah.
at revenue. But when
Uh-huh.
you have to start looking at expenses and what you're keeping home and all that and pay bills, it's depressing.
It is. Nobody does a tax return because they want to. The great thing about running a tax planning business is everybody wants to save money on taxes. If you tell
Wow.
people,
Mhm.
so if people ask you what you do for a living and you say, I'm a CPA, great. They're going to talk to the person on the other side of them at the table. But if you say, I help business owners pay less tax, now you got a conversation. Now, and yet, as we've just seen, this is not part of the formal education that you get to get licensed as a CPA, and it wasn't part of the big traditional accounting firm that you went to work for when you got out of school. So, in order to build a planning oriented practice, you literally had to build your own practice. Literally
Yeah,
had to do it yourself.
that's exactly right. It is. It's unfortunate. It really is. A number of my clients who are attorneys, and there were some reason I find that a lot of attorneys like to teach
Mhm.
in colleges, and
Mhm.
I guess
Yeah,
it's their
it
way.
classes the joint up if you can say you're an adjunct at a nearby law school.
Yeah, I believe so. But a number of them actually invited me more than once to their classes, whatever they were teaching, entrepreneurship or
Hmm.
business law, whatever the case may be, as an accountant, as a CPA, to essentially talk to aspiring entrepreneurs or
Sure.
business owners and just share my life experiences with the students, the bunch of 20-year-olds.
Hmm.
So I gladly accepted it because. You could probably tell I love speaking, and I could talk to a dead tree if you want to. But I love trying to shape the minds of the young people
Hmm.
because I feel that personally, our system does not do justice. The educational system, they don't teach us everything that perhaps we need to know. And when by the time we become young adults, we are lost, right?
Yeah.
Because we're not ready for the real world. So I attended a number of lectures as a guest speaker. And my speaking was supposed to be maybe 15, 20 minutes, but usually there were 3 hour classes. I ended up staying all the way till the end because of the amount of questions I had from the students,
Hmm.
amount of interaction, and how well that interaction was with those students, and how much value they actually got from me being there.
Yeah.
And after each time that I attended these, guest lectures that of conducted those guest lectures, deans would come up to me after the lecture because apparently they were all present. I don't know why, and they would ask me if I
They
would
hate paying taxes too.
probably, but they were offering me a position in their institutions to teach.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
my response to them was, great. I would love to teach entrepreneurship. I would love to teach things that they
Hmm.
actually may learn a thing or two and utilize in their everyday lives. Would you be open for me to come up with my own curriculum and what I intend to teach, lesson plans, etc.? The answer was no. Unfortunately, Mr. Kaplan, we have to stick to the plan of what's allowed to be taught in our school.
Yeah.
And what you are trying to teach, unfortunately, we cannot permit. So
Hmm.
that's your answer, Ed. There's a reason why they don't want students to be exposed to entrepreneurship ideas, the fact that school is not for everybody, right? How many successful entrepreneurs literally quit college and became billionaires? We know a
Sure.
lot of them. A lot
Yeah,
of them are
we know
actually
a
in
lot of
Fortune
them.
500 guys. I mean, starting with Zuckerberg, right? I mean,
Well,
Facebook
starting with Gates,
with
he
Gates.
Yeah.
created the
Yeah.
mold. Zuckerberg came along. If you're a computer science major at Stanford, Google and Facebook start recruiting you after your sophomore year. They don't want you to finish. They want you to take Computer Science 7, and once you've got that class out of the way, they'll take you. But that's an interesting point, and Neil, this is something that we'll have to talk about on a future podcast. Kids get out of school and they are so completely unprepared for some really basic real world responsibilities.
Mhm.
I'm in Ohio, and my kids all had to take a state mandated semester class in financial literacy, but the curriculum was terrible. The professor gave some Dave Ramsey handouts, and that was about it. I told my son, I said, please let me come. Please tell your teacher that I would love to come and demolish a lot of what's in these handouts because it's just bad advice. I've done a lot of lectures for college classes, for entrepreneurship, for marketing. I had a lot of fun teaching a business of music class. I'm on a orchestra board here in Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Contemporary Jazz Orchestra. One of our guitarists teaches the class at the College Conservatory of Music, and I was, and he did a segment on how to do your taxes. And he said, that's all I know is how to do taxes. You take it from there. So I walked in and I said, look, what Brad told you is great stuff, but how to do your taxes is just the starting point. Let's talk about how you pay less. Let's have some stories from musicians. I talked about the Rolling Stones when they recorded the album Exile on Main Street. They were actually tax exiles. The most depressing part was there were students who had never heard of the Rolling Stones.
Oh boy.
And I know that's a boomer band, but and
Yeah.
and I taught a class on tax planning at a for a Division I college football team, football players, and these are guys who some of them are starting to make several $100,000 a year from name, image, and likeness income payment, and have no idea how to handle it. And a lot of them come from families that are
It's
not
crazy. Yeah,
sophisticated.
that's for another topic. I think we might have to
Yeah.
have someone on from the organization I'm working with the NIL, because that would
Mhm.
be an interesting topic for the
Yeah,
show.
and I've had conversations with clients who are college level and professional football players, which is where more there's more money there than anything else. And people just aren't trained for the real world stuff. And so, Alexi, your story is another example of that. And you would think, oh, somebody who took 10 classes on top of a bachelor's degree just for the right to sit for a four-part exam would have training on this really important thing that clients want. And what you've told us is no, no, and that can be a really expensive mistake to
Totally.
assume that. Neil, I assume you've got a person who handles your taxes, and
Yes.
you're probably learning a lot about that relationship just through these
Oh,
podcasts
I mean, yeah,
that you and I are
absolutely.
doing.
Absolutely. I think the biggest bottom line is, first of all, don't worry to be audited. It's great what you're able to do. I guess if I had Alexi on my side, I would say, okay, now I got somebody that's going to protect me. I have my health. I have a team of professionals as one of my mentors and co-host with Alan Porter. I have a
Mhm.
team of professionals on my side, and I have more professionals than you can imagine, from doctors,
Mhm.
lawyers, CPAs, all the people I know. And the key thing is you got to have those right people in your corner.
When
And
something goes wrong, you want to be able to say, "I know a guy."
right, I have a couple doctors that can just write me scripts right now. I mean, that's
Don't abuse that. Don't
I no,
abuse
no,
that.
no, I'm not. If I need somebody for this or that, or I go and I pick up the phone, that's the power of understanding and learning because
Yeah.
we all think, okay, the person we're with is the person that's going to work the best. The answer is no. And
It's not always the case. Yeah.
when the evolution of the research we can come up with, because I'll use the word research because that's what I like to use.
Hmm.
The research and the information that's out there, the information highway, Google just made some changes today on Googling. If I would have literally said, oh, you can't get Googled your personal brand for certain things, it totally changed today. So that's
Okay.
the power of just, you got to
Yeah.
constantly learn.
And you're a sponge for information, which is helpful. Well, that's great. And Neil, that's your personality. You pick up information, and you're in the fortunate position to be able to talk to experts like me in a ton of different fields every day. For the average business owner, that's not the case. They are busy running their business. Their business does not involve learning all day long the way yours does. So they're doctoring or lawyering or drywalling or roofing or whatever it is they do all day, and they need to find someone who's going to understand that they don't just want a tax return. They want to pay less.
Yep.
And B, they want to work with somebody who understands them. So, you know, the greatest politician of his era, love him or loathe him, was a guy named Bill Clinton. And in his 1992 campaign, he said, "I feel your pain." People want to work with vendors who feel their pain. If you're a business owner, you want to work with someone who understands what it's like to run a business, the insecurity of running a business. Uh, I had a I had a great Tom Quigley, who you work with, who's a friend of mine. We discovered when my wife got pregnant with our third child that my health insurance didn't cover maternity. And if I was going to look for health insurance for her with maternity, her existing pregnancy was a pre-existing condition.
Yeah.
But Tom Quigley is a genius at healthcare planning in the way that I'm pretty good, and Alexi, you're a genius with tax planning. So he was able to get insurance coverage that had maternity coverage, and I happened to be working with the right guy. But if I had been working with just some agent at the end of a 1-800 number for a big insurance company, if I didn't know a guy, that was going to be a really expensive
Yeah.
delivery. And this was my son was born in 2005. His birthday's coming up next week, actually. But I had just started a new company called Tax Code Software and was not in a position to afford a baby. People who are running a business want to know that the person they're coming to for financial advice understands that there might not be money there in the bank account to make payroll on Friday afternoon.
100%.
Yeah.
So,
2005 was a great year, I hear, because my daughter was also born, my firstborn in
okay,
2005. That's when I started my first business.
okay. It
Yeah.
was a good year. Good thing they weren't applying for jobs 3 years later.
That's true.
So really, I mean, just kind of to wrap it up, yeah, how do you get the most out of your accountant? You don't take it for granted that your accountant understands tax planning or your desire for tax planning. You don't take it for granted that your accountant understands what it's like to run a business. Alexi, the reason I have so much fun working with you among so many people that I work with is because you're not just an accountant. You're an entrepreneur yourself who somehow got trapped and trust in a CPA's body. But while you run an accounting practice, while we look and from the outside we think, oh, he's a CPA running an accounting practice. What you're really doing is very different from most CPAs. You're selling advice and you're selling results, and you're doing it from a position of understanding literally where they come from, and you understand their pain. So that's a very different end goal than most people, watching this podcast are going to be coming from. They put a lot of stock in the initials EA or CPA. If they're working with an EA, they don't know what EA stands for,
No,
and they probably call their EA a CPA, and that's fine if the EA delivers the results. But we make a lot of assumptions based on people's credentials and people's educational background and things like that. And in 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 tax planning, that's not what you want to be looking for.
no, not at all. No, Ed, what you both of you guys, what you said was 1000% accurate. Every single business owner has to surround him or herself with the right team of qualified, and I stress the word qualified professionals, right?
Hmm.
Whether it's an attorney, whether it's an accountant cannot be just an accountant. They have to specialize in tax planning, hopefully in the industry that the client is in,
Right.
because it's a specialty, right?
Yeah.
Every single industry has a specific niche, right? Specific
Sure.
certain uh, things that other industries do not. So if the accountant or a tax practitioner or tax planner or all of the above
Hmm.
specializes in a particular niche, let's say orthodontists
Hmm.
or plastic surgeons or whatever, or immigration attorneys, right?
Right, exactly. Qualified, you
Correct.
can't assume because they've got the right initials after their name that they are qualified. So I've got a JD after my name. But if you come ask me a question about immigration law, I have no idea. If you're going to ask me about criminal law, go somewhere else. It would be unethical for me. I don't currently practice law, but I've never taken a criminal case. And if you came to me and said, Ed, I want you to defend me, it would be an ethical violation for me to take a criminal case simply
Right.
because I'm in over my head. I have no idea what I'm doing. So don't assume that CPA or EA means qualified to do what you want them to do.
Nope.
And always vet. And by the way, one of the things I tell anyone I work with or even prospects that before you make a decision, you got to speak and meet with at least three candidates
Hmm.
and interview them. And guess what? If you coming to me, I'm going to interview you the same way you interviewed me because I need to make sure that we could work together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has to be mutually beneficial because I'm not looking for, one night stand. It has to be a long-term relationship.
Yeah. It's
And
going to be,
most people, and I'm sorry, Ed, and most people, they're looking exactly for that. They're looking for a long-term relationship where
mhm.
they're trusted, qualified professionals to be a part of their team and to make sure that those professionals could work with other members of their team, like attorneys, insurance guys, etc.,
Mhm.
bankers, right?
Yep.
So it is important for anyone and everyone who's in business for themselves to surround themselves with a qualified team of professionals. That's
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate your point about interviewing multiple people. You don't necessarily go with the first one. I've been divorced twice, and I'm not looking for the next ex Mrs. Lyon, but when I do, I'm going to date more than one woman. Not necessarily at the same time, but I'm not going to marry the first one that comes along. I'm going to interview more than one.
Well, it's your time to play. You
We'll
you,
see.
you got to see the merchandise before you buy it. That's the old saying, right?
That's a whole different genre of podcasts. Neil, maybe you go there, but
I know of every podcast in the world. So yeah, we can put something together for you,
yeah,
Alexi.
we're not going to go there here. But Alexi, thanks so much for joining us. I love telling your story to people, and I love the opportunity uh, to hear the story for this audience because it really is so instructive. The world is full of CPAs. There's 665,000 CPAs in America right now. If you assume the average CPA is 5'7" and you lay them head to toe, starting at Grand Central Station, they will reach the outskirts of Atlanta.
Wow.
So, just the initials after the name don't do it. You've got to dig a lot deeper and find somebody who's going to be an appropriate fit for you and somebody who's going to do the things for them that you want them to do. So, thanks so much for your time today, Neil. Obviously, thanks for hosting us. I enjoy these conversations with you every week.
All right. Me too. All right. That was a special simulcast of the Neil Haley Show and the Lion Share